Do you need to make lineup plans without Juju Smith-Schuster? Can Jamal Williams be trusted in your lineups? And is Baker Mayfield the play over Jared Goff in championship week? Plus, the Week 15 7th place team in the FFPC main event, Neil Hassett, drops in on the show to discuss the Rams backfield without Todd Gurley, whether Calvin Ridley is a shark start this week, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around.
Presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
Shot for the head, he shot back, but he missed up.
Thanks so much, Rob. Greetings and salutations, each and every one of you Balkaholics and Gerzak addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I am, of course, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, NBA superfan, the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. Coming up on tonight's show, is Chris Carson about to win you a fantasy title? Can you trust T.Y. Hilton and Derrick Henry this week? And the 7th place team in the FFPC main event, Neil Hassett, joins us to share how he has ascended 278 spots in just 2 weeks and much more. All tonight on the HSFF Hour. Shout out to the chat room right now. Feel free to post any questions you might have in there. You can connect with the show on Twitter at HSFF Hour, myself on Twitter at Eric Balkman, or the Dizzle at David Gerzak, Facebook.com/HSFF Hour, and 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. You can also email the show at the inbox, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Get those questions to us now. The chat room questions, tweets, and emails will all be answered coming up later on in the show in the fantasy feedback segment. And I want to thank our producer and mutual friend, Rob, audio engineer Bryce. Happy holidays to both of you guys. Thanks for all your hard work in 2018. They are manning the show tonight. Want to remind everybody, if you have not taken a look at the world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge, it is indeed live. $200,000 grand prize, a $750,000 prize pool. $200 gets you into the contest. It's a cap of 4,250 teams, 10-player lineup, 1 player per NFL playoff team, less than a month to go to register at myffpc.com. It's actually coming up on, 2 weeks, Dave? Is that right? A little bit more than 2 weeks that you have. I think it's 22 days right now. Or 15 days right now until the lineup's locked for that.
We're already over 500 teams.
All right, excellent. That's good to hear. Where were we at this point last year? 700 teams? 900 teams?
Yeah, 1,000.
That's what I thought.
The cap number's gone up, so I don't know if we may or may not sell out.
Right, yeah.
Alex thinks it's going to sell out, I'm not sure. $200,000 though, that's pretty juicy.
I think that's par for the course. Alex thinks it's going to sell out. Dave is not sure, and I am positive it won't. I feel like that's sort of the roles that we have played on this podcast over the years. New high stakes lowdown at rotoviz.com/podcast. Jeremy Roach is this week's guest. He has teams in the FFPC main event, Football Guys Players Championship, and he is leading the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship along with his co-manager Danny Mueller with 1 week to go there. Great stuff from Jeremy. A very long episode. It was almost a 50-minute episode. Jeremy said some of the bourbon that he was drinking may or may not have caused him to ramble towards the end of the podcast. And two-packer also got a mention on there too, which is always entertaining. So that's going on at rotoviz.com/podcast. All right, let's get to tonight's guest, ladies and gentlemen. He is, now this is interesting. Okay, I'm going to leave this for last. he won the NFFC Super last year. He has 2 teams in the NFFC Championship this year. Has cashed in many FFPC
You don't give a crap about the NFFC.
and NFFC events, but he has yet to win the big one. Dave, he sits just 6 spots from the top of the FFPC main event with 1 week left to go. Please welcome to the show a gentleman who graduated high school with fellow high-stakes player Glenn Lowy. It is Neil Hassett. Neil, happy holidays, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, no problem.
This is the question, obviously, on everybody's mind as we are in championship week. Everybody talking about fantasy football. Neil, inquiring minds want to know, what was Glenn Lowy like in high school?
He was kind of a nebbish, kind of a nerdy kind of guy. And no, really, I didn't know him really in high school. I found out after the fact that we were in the same graduation class. It was such a big high school that you couldn't really know everybody, even though I'm very
yeah.
Neil's being nice. He was with the cool crowd,
right?
And Glenn, not so much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Was there? Now you said 1,500. Was that in the whole school or in your class?
No, that's just in the class.
In the class, my gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
That's incredible to me.
Yeah.
We're in Northeast Wisconsin here. Where graduating high school classes are sometimes as high as 4. So it's a totally different scenario here. Neil, listen, thanks for joining us. We want to get into fantasy football. Before we do that, can you tell the listeners what you do for a living?
I'm an accountant and a financial advisor. Not really a fun time to be a financial advisor at this particular moment, but overall, it's fun and lucrative.
It's a buying opportunity, right?
I would say it is, yes. Especially
that's
Apple and Facebook. I think that's a good opportunity.
Yeah, Facebook they've been getting slammed for some of the stuff they've kind of been doing. But, I mean, in the long run, people still go on there and jibber-jabber and do all the basic crap. Sharing super hard, bragging about where they're vacationing and all the other crap that they do. Great. What do you do on Facebook, Paul? You kid pictures. I
don't post a whole lot of kid pictures. Yeah. My wife posts those and then she tags me in them.
Yeah.
Did you see the Facebook post I had today? You would enjoy it.
I'm not on Facebook.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting about it. I'm going to show you after the show. You'll appreciate it.
Great.
It's a die-hard thing.
Anyway. All right. So, Neil, we'll actually ask you a question relating to your team. Caught fire at the right time, survived a really brutal Week 15. Almost everyone has struggled. Moved up from 285th place to 7th. That is sick. Tell us what it's been like with your squad these past few weeks. And how many points did you score last week?
A significant amount of points. I'm looking it up right now. It was.
Neil, I think you had 167 in Week 14, and then 176. I want to say in Week 15. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, 176.95 in Week 15, 167 in Week 14. When I was after Week 14, I was so far out, I really wasn't even. I mean, I was paying attention because I'm always paying attention, but I wasn't really. Thinking that it had a chance, the team, until like Sunday this week, and I saw the points being scored. I'm like, okay, I'm moving up pretty quick. I was actually very surprised by it.
Do you ever remember, Dave? I know we had last year in the Football Guys Players Championship, and I forget the guy's name. He didn't end up winning it, but coming into the championship round, he was so far down, like 1,000. He was so,
up to 1,000.
Yeah, and he put up a 239 or something like that in Week 14, and he was leading the whole thing.
Wow.
I remember he beat cancer too. It was such a great story, and I can't remember who it was, but that was probably that was the most. How terrible.
Well, I think that was
right?
a bigger accomplishment.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Listen, I started at 285. After the first 13 weeks. So, I mean, I was way back.
Yeah, it's 278 spots. I think as far as the main event goes, I can't remember anybody advancing that far over a 2-week span. It's been an incredible rise for you, no question, Neil. I want to ask you here about one of the most talked about names, I guess you could say, here in championship week. It's Juju Smith-Schuster, and he's got a groin injury. He hurt it in practice yesterday. He goes through the walkthrough in practice today. He doesn't really practice. Now, Antonio Brown said that he expects Smith-Schuster to be out there. We don't know. It's a late game. I'm kind of wondering how you're going to handle this. It seems like looking at your roster, Jamal Williams would probably be the next guy up that you can put in flex, but Jamal Williams plays at 1 o'clock on Sunday. How are you planning on handling this Smith-Schuster thing?
Well, luckily, I have Tyler Lockett, so I'm definitely going to start Tyler Lockett if Juju doesn't play, because I'm already going to put Jamal Williams in the lineup no matter what. So Jamal Williams is going to start regardless. He's at 1 o'clock, and then it's either going to be Juju or Tyler Lockett. And I hope for a kick return. Plus, Kansas City doesn't really have a good, secondary. So that's the plan. And Tyler Lockett's overdue for a kick return.
Yeah, no, he is. That's a good point, too. And Lockett is a guy that, for whatever reason, it just seems to be his year because he's seemingly finding the end zone quite a bit when he not in proportion to the targets and the catches he's getting. He's getting a high rate of touchdowns. And it just, 2018, really, it's been a breakout year for him. And if you had him on your roster like you do, you're enjoying the spoils of that for sure.
I'd much rather have Juju play, but at least I have a viable option. Somebody who's going to play and potentially, have some stats.
Talking with Neil Hassett, who is 7th place overall in the FFPC main event here on the Championship Week edition of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Looking at this team, Neil, you really built a hell of a good team without taking a tight end until round 12 when you made O.J. Howard your selection there. When you consider the tight end premium format of the FFPC, is that pretty typical for you, or was this unique where you didn't draft a tight end until that late?
I think it was just draft specific. Tight ends were going really early. George Kittle went in the 9th round. That was somebody who I might have looked at. In the 10th round, I was tempted to take a tight end, but I really needed Aaron Jones because I had taken Jamal Williams early. And I really thought that I would need both of those guys, so I passed on the tight end. I was happy to have O.J. Howard. I think if he didn't get hurt, he would have been fantastic. He had a stretch where he was really effective. And the half a point differential for tight end, sometimes I think people focus too much on that, and they take too many tight ends early, and I think that's a mistake. I'm starting C.J. Uzuma, however you pronounce his name, and Matt Lacoste is my backup. So you can win without a good tight end, because I am living proof of that.
Yeah, no question on that for sure. And I've seen it. I'm kind of curious. What do you think? Where do you think O.J. Howard goes in next year's draft in the FFPC? Because he's going to get bumped up based on his performance this year. Is O.J. Howard drafted as like a top 7 tight end, top 5 tight end, or maybe even higher?
I think he's definitely in the top 10. I think Cameron Brate's a free agent, so I think O.J. Howard will be the number 1. He won't even have a timeshare issue. And the tight end position is so thin, so I would have to say 7, top 7, top 10 at the worst.
I wanted to ask you about as long as we're talking about where you drafted O.J. Howard is obviously at the back end of the draft. And a lot of high-stakes players, you ask anybody, they love picking first, second, third. They love picking at the top of the the front end of round 1. You built a monster picking from the 11th spot. How much do you alter your draft strategy when you're selecting from the front end of the round and from the back end of the round? Is there a major difference aside from the players that you're probably going to be picking different guys there, given that they're at opposite ends of the board? But as far as strategy goes, does that alter too much for you?
I think each draft is different. In the FFPC, it's the luck of the draw wherever you draft. Serpentine, you usually want to be near the front, but I think when you're picking 11 or 12 near the back end, you want to focus on who's available. In this particular draft, I thought that the wide receivers were too good to pass up. I actually wanted to go into the 11th spot, taking a running back first, and then having at least 3 wide receivers after that. It just fell that way for me this particular draft. But I like the wide receivers when you're drafting late.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that by and large, in Kentucky this year in the KFFSC, I feel like for the second straight year, the best teams I drafted were the ones I went 0 RB on. And those just happened to be where I was drafting at the back end of the first round, like where I was drafting like 9th or later. In the leagues where I did draft, top 1, top 2, whatever, and I got Gurley on those squads or Saquon Barkley or whatever, those also did very good as well. So So I think it does change the roster construction a little bit, at least in the first few rounds, and that's sort of what I'll be implementing in 2019 as well. Neil Hassett is our guest tonight on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Was in 285th in the FFPC main event just a couple weeks ago. He's risen all the way up to seventh place with $250,000 on the line for the grand prize in the competition being awarded after Week 16. Now, you only carried one defense and one kicker after waivers closed in the contest this year, Neil. Why was it more important to you to keep these extra running backs, tight ends, receivers? Why was it more important to keep those guys around instead of a backup kicker or maybe a second defense where you could play matchups? Can you tell us a little bit about that thought process?
Well, I do have Dan Bailey on my team, so I do have a backup to Greg Zuerlein. However, the defense, I looked at Tennessee's schedule, and I really liked Tennessee's schedule late in the season, and it even got better when Washington's quarterback got hurt. So I was pretty lucky that Tennessee's defense, it became more attractive. Also, Justin Jackson was available in week 13, and I had to get him. I got lucky and got him, and I needed some tight end depth because I only had CJ and Lacoste, so I picked up Everett from the Rams. But I do have a backup kicker. I don't like to not have a backup kicker. I think that's a mistake. But defenses don't get hurt. Team defenses don't get hurt. So I don't think you need a backup defense if you have one that has good matchups all the way through.
And then like when you're kind of loading up your roster for the first the final few weeks of waivers, it's kind of important to look at that championship round matchups for those defenses, because if they are good and they are solid, boom, you just got kind of a bonus roster spot because you're going to play that defense all 3 weeks, and now you have an extra. You can keep another quarterback, keep another tight end, or what have you. It makes a lot of sense. I'm totally with you though. I mean, I got to have a backup kicker, and if I get both my kickers get hurt in that 3-week sprint, Neil, it wasn't meant to be that.
Exactly. Well, plus Tennessee in Week 14 had Jacksonville, who benched the quarterback. The Giants, it was raining, so that was a really big advantage. And then this week, I really like Tennessee's defense against Josh Johnson.
Yeah, that's going to be a good matchup, Dave, for the Tennessee defense taking on Josh Johnson this week.
Yeah, it should be something else.
Yeah.
And even, talking about drafting at the back end of the draft, I really don't think it matters where you pick. Like in the draft I was in, the 2 spot, he started with David Johnson, and he hasn't really panned out. Kelsey and Ertz were his next picks. That's good. But then you start with Golden Tate and Allen Robinson, Randall Cobb. Those are your wide receivers. That to me, that's not really, the best way to handle a draft. So you can make a mistake at number 2, or you could draft a great team from number 2.
It's totally true. That's 100% correct. Todd Gurley is a big name that we're watching this weekend. Now you're probably hoping for your own personal sake that he doesn't play, since you do not have to count on him this weekend to win the FFPC main event. If he does miss, would you recommend, and I know these guys outside of John Kelly probably were not rostered prior to waivers being closed, but if somebody's playing in a league where they still could get these guys, C.J. Anderson, John Kelly, Justin Davis, any other Rams rusher against a good matchup against the Cardinals, would you recommend any of those guys being played if Gurley is in fact inactive?
Well, I don't think. Well, Davis is not going to play. C.J. Anderson was cut by the Raiders, so I think he's washed. But if you have no other choice because there's so many injuries, then if you have to plug him in, that's fine. But I think John Kelly will be the most effective running back. He looked good in the preseason. He has fresh legs, and I think if that was the choice, I would go with John Kelly.
So Neil, if Julio actually misses Week 16, do you think Calvin Ridley's a must start at Carolina?
Well, I would say yes. He hit the rookie wall, I think, in late in the season, like Week 10, 11, 12, 13. He hasn't really done much. I think Sanu is kind of a sneaky start, but I think most people who have Ridley, if Julio is out, they're going to play Ridley, and neither team have anything to play for, so I think Ridley will do fine. I don't think he'll have a monster game, but I think he'll do fine.
As long as we're talking about that game, Neil, how do you handicap the Panthers offense with no Cam Newton, and you have Taylor Heineke in there slinging the rock around? You know, everybody's going to play Christian McCaffrey, no question there. Is there any other value with like DJ Moore, Devin Funchess, Ian Thomas, any of those guys? I mean, can you trust? You probably can't trust them. Would you be willing to start any of those guys in a pinch, or are they just let's stay away because we just don't know what's going to happen with that offense?
I think DJ Moore is a really good start because I think him and the quarterback will have a nice connection. The way, you know, he doesn't have a strong arm, the quarterback, and Moore could kind of run slants and, you know, wide receiver screens. So DJ Moore, to me, is the only other guy worth looking at.
Neil, let's get to some emails that came in for you over the last couple of days from some listeners. I'm going to go to Brandon in Oakland first. He writes, any faith in Sterling Shepard this week with no Odell Beckham? Good luck in the main. That is Brandon in Oaktown, California. So your thoughts, Neil, on what we can expect from Sterling Shepard this week? Is it going to be any different than what we've seen the last 2 weeks with no Odell Beckham?
I wouldn't really trust Sterling Shepard. I'm a big Giant fan. He hasn't done much, and you know the Colts have a good defense. They do have one cornerback who I think can shut down a wide receiver on the other side. So I really wouldn't start him unless I had no other options.
Dave, I know you don't like Sterling Shepard.
Got that right.
And I don't think you can say the descriptors that you've given Sterling Shepard over the last month or so on the air because they have not been kind.
Yeah, I mean, it's just super frustrating. The guy's supposed to be this all-right, you know, this up-and-coming young player.
Polished route runner.
Yeah, and he's terrible. You know, you're losing 12 targets a game with Beckham, and he comes out and he's just terrible. He can't do anything. And if they try and play him outside, apparently doesn't know how to play outside.
Right.
And they don't use him in the slot enough. So, yeah, exactly. And then they're not using him. I mean, stick some other piece of crap way out to, you know, anybody you want way out on the outside, and put Shepard in the middle and have him run the slot.
Bring back Brandon Marshall. Put him on the outside.
Whoever.
Yeah.
Who was the other like super tall guy? Who was like,
Hakeem Nicks?
No, like it was like
Plaxico Burress?
It wasn't Dorial Green Beckham, but he had a similar name. Like remember, it was like one of those.
And he was on the Giants?
Yeah, for a little while. He was a hype guy. He was like 6'5", 240.
It's not ringing any bells.
It's fine.
It's not resonating. No.
Let's move.
That's how bad he was.
Yeah, exactly. Jerry in Minneapolis for you, Neil, here. He writes, is it crazy for me to flex out Eli McGuire in my league championship? I am assuming I'm going to be down Gurley. That is Jerry in Minneapolis. Well, depending upon your other options is what we always like to say on the show, and he doesn't list any here. But what do you think about McGuire this week, Neil, as he hosts the Green Bay Packers at home? Your thoughts on McGuire?
I like McGuire very much. I'm from New York. I watch all the Jet games. He is going to have like 90% of the backfield to himself, or 80%, and I think that just workload alone he'll do very well. It's kind of similar to a Jamal Williams.
Neil, I'm kind of curious. I'm totally on board with as well as far as McGuire goes. We should have asked this at the top of the show, but what are your plans for watching the games this weekend with so much on the line, and obviously it's going to come down to a Christmas Eve game with the Broncos and Raiders. How do you plan on taking in the festivities this weekend?
I'm going to probably have some wine and beer and some other liquor and try to relax and not watch every game, not get too upset. I am concerned about Philip Lindsay against Oakland on Monday night. It's going to come down to that, and he's been good. It seems like the last few weeks he's gotten a little, he's hitting the wall a little bit. So I'm hoping that he's kind of tired, but I think I'm just going to do some drinking and hope for the best.
Yeah, no, that's what we plan on doing as well, for sure. Neil, talking about Lindsay here for a second, this is a guy who, if you look at rankings, I would say throughout the majority of the season, probably the last 2/3 of the season, he's been a consensus like top 12 guy. Last few weeks, like top 6, top 7 ranked running back each week. It seems like. As far as 2019 drafts go, does the second round seem right for Lindsay next year, assuming that they come back with this Freeman-Lindsay backfield?
I don't know about second, maybe third. I think it depends on the coaching staff because they're going to change the whole coaching staff. And if Mike Shanahan is the coach, he's kind of the running back whisperer, so maybe it would be a second. But I think maybe, without the new coach, I would say third.
It's frustrating to me. It seems like Lindsey should catch more passes than he does, and for whatever reason, he just does not seem to get a lot of catches out of the backfield. I mean, he gets some. He's not like Michael Turner or anything like that, but it just seems like he could be doing more there. Dave,
it's tough to be frustrated with Lindsey when he's like complimentary.
No,
he's got X number of hitting guys.
Right. No, and I'm not complaining. He's been wonderful, a wonderful selection for pick up off the waiver wire for me this year. It's just one of those things where I always want more, Dave. I always want more. Final question for Neil from you tonight, good sir.
All right, we need some help here. There's so many injuries, so many, good players that aren't playing and crappy players that are. So this is one of the ones we always ask. So give us a guy that a lot of high-stakes players will be starting this week that they should probably be actually benching. And also a sleeper player that deserves to be in lineups this week that some people aren't really thinking about.
Well, I'm not comfortable starting Melvin Gordon, personally. I think most people that have him will play him because he's Melvin Gordon, but it's a really tough matchup, and he said he's not 100% himself. I don't trust the coach saying that he looks great. I mean, with that being said, you really can't sit the guy, but I don't really think he's going to do well. Mike Evans is another guy I don't have high expectations for, but again, I don't think you're going to sit him because most people don't have that depth. And George Kittle, too. George Kittle against the Bears are really good against the tight end, and I think now that he had that breakout game, they're really going to focus on Kittle because they don't have a lot of other offensive weapons for the defense to focus on. And I'm also rooting personally against Kittle because I don't have him. Those are my fades. As far as sleepers, I think Corey Davis, although it looks like he has a bad matchup, I think Corey Davis is going to have a good game. And I like DJ Moore, as we spoke about before. McGuire on the Jets. Robbie Anderson, I think, will have a good game. And Chris Hogan, I think, could be taken out of mothballs because of the Josh Gordon injury. The suspension.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I'm with you on Robbie Anderson for sure. He's a guy I really like in Week 16. One guy that we haven't talked about yet is Melvin Gordon's real-life teammate, Keenan Allen. He had that hip pointer last week. Sounds like he's going to be ready to go. We'll obviously know because he plays a Saturday night game this week, so you'll have plenty of time to find a replacement for him if he does sit. Sounds like he's going to go. If you owned him, Neil, would you be trotting Keenan Allen out there at the risk of him getting hurt again?
If I had to, I would, but if I didn't have to, I definitely wouldn't. I think if I had a healthier alternative, I would. And the coach said he's a game-time decision. So he's had a checkered past when it comes to injuries. You never know when it's going to flare up again. But again, most of the time you're going to have to play him because I doubt that somebody has 5, 6 startable wide receivers. But if it was a toss-up, I'd probably lean against starting him and start the healthier guy.
Awesome stuff, Neil. I really appreciate it. Neil Hassett, ladies and gentlemen, 7th place team in the FFPC main event heading into championship week. Listen, my friend, I appreciate you coming on, and enjoy the liquor, the beer, the wine, and the football this weekend. Happy holidays to you. Best of luck to you in the main event and in all your leagues, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
You too, guys. Thank you very much. I hope I'll be holding a giant check at some point.
That would be wonderful. We're rooting for you, buddy.
Happy holidays. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Neil, and happy holidays to you and yours for sure. Neil Hassett, 7th place in the FFPC main event in championship week. Dave, we haven't really talked about our teams, our personal teams, too much on this show. How are you doing in? You have 5 dynasty championships you're playing in this weekend.
So yeah, I was in. I'm in 8 private dynasty leagues. I was actually in 6 semis, and I actually got lucky enough to win 5 of them.
Right.
So
you almost won all 6.
Almost won all 6. The McCaffrey catch, I was going against 2 McCaffreys and I owned 4, and the last catch cost me that one. I was looking at our favorite league, the Carrington League,
which you're playing for the title in for the third straight year. Congratulations.
Well, so I only have 4 receivers on that team,
right? For
whatever reason.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen.
Yep.
Brandon Cooks. Tyreek Hill.
Right.
And Juju.
Yep.
And you have to start 3 wide receivers.
Might be a problem for you.
So today I benched Juju for Allen.
Right.
But if Allen doesn't play, I might only have 2 receivers to start.
Well, here's the thing. At least the decision will be made for you then at that point.
Yeah. So right now Juju's benched. I'm going to try and start Allen. So I don't think Juju's going to play. I really don't.
And that is my personal feeling.
The Thursday groin injury is just, it's not good.
Well, and it's a new injury.
Yeah.
Like it was something that he hurt in practice.
It's a late game, by the way. It's Gurley.
No, it's a 4:25 game on
right.
Sunday, not the Sunday night game is Kansas City and.
Well, late by later. Than
where you went? I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I was just gonna say. Oh, he didn't. Another thing, Juju did not speak to the media today either.
Yeah, they didn't want him to. Yeah, so I just don't think he sucks.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you don't know for sure, but even with my wishful thinking, I just don't think he's playing. I don't think Gurley's playing either.
I would agree with you on both of those, and it's an unfortunate thing. It's just one of those things you got to roll with. How about in Kentucky? Do you still have a top 10 team there right now?
Yeah, Game Changers,
ninth place.
And it has both Juju and Gurley.
That's a problem. Damn it. Well, I'm glad I brought this up. This is a huge buzzkill for this segment. Do you have decent replacements there? I mean, like guys that you'd feel okay as flex?
Really, no. I mean, Sterling Shepard is one of them, I think.
Yeah, that's not good.
Who I don't really. I mean, he's had, Shepard to be, whatever. He's had a couple of big games this year, early in the season, and he's been getting targets, so there is that.
Right.
My other, if I get Gurley out of there, I can throw in Riddick, which is not great. I mean, the thing is, I had Tyler Boyd, but then he got hurt too, so it's like.
Oh God, yeah.
That's kind of where you're at.
Riddick is hosting the Vikings this week, so maybe there'll be some dump-offs there if they're playing catch-up, which, I mean, they should, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I own a lot of Juju, I own a lot of Gurley, so it's problematic for me, I mean, I could do very well being all five and lose 4 of the 5 or all 5 potentially, so.
Yeah.
Second place pays better than third or fourth, like you were saying.
That's what to believe right now, for sure. Let's get into the news around the NFL right now, Dave, on Fantasy Flash. Thanks to Football Guys, Roto World, RotoPass, and Rob for tonight's rundown. Rams coach Sean McVay said Todd Gurley will be indeed a game-time decision for the Cardinals game, according to Rich Hammond on Twitter. Gurley did not practice all week. He had knee inflammation. Now, he is scheduled to go through a pregame warm-up, and dependent upon how he does in that, he could be active. Like you heard from Neil Hassett just now, Justin Davis is not going to play. C.J. Anderson could be in for a lot of carries, even if Gurley is active. But this is a real kick to the groin here if you own Todd Gurley. And the other thing to make it even worse, it is a 4:05 game. And I think that you have to weigh your options here. And Dave and I are both telling you, I'll put a percentage chance on this. I think he's probably got about maybe, and this might be being a little bit kind, I think he's maybe got a 30% chance of playing.
Yeah, I mean, that seems about right. I mean, for example, just the Riddick decision. Riddick's a 1 o'clock game. So if I hear something from whether it's Schefter or the rap sheet or whatever, and they say that Gurley is feeling good, it's looking like he's going to actually, assuming the warm-up goes okay, he's going to give it a go. Right. Then I'll actually read the TVs and give it a shot and hit it more than 50%. But if they say, it's looking tentative, we're not really, we don't really think it's
knees swelled up overnight or something.
That's for sure out. But I mean, if they even say we're not feeling too good, optimistic about it, right? Or the Rams feel like they can make a game of it without him, that type of thing. I would think actually that Cooks might be a slightly better start with Gurley's out. I mean, if you want to be a little bit optimistic, so.
Or Josh Reynolds.
I guess. He's still Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody likes to think he's so good. He's like a poor man Galladay. Always hyped up and always kind of underperformed. I
don't feel like he gets near the hype that Galladay gets. I mean, even when Kupp went down, I figure, here comes the hype train for Josh Reynolds again. There was some, but it really wasn't.
Not too bad, right?
Yeah. This is the advice I would give. Do not, hold out as long as you possibly can before 1 o'clock on Sunday, because oftentimes after the inactives get announced at 11:30 or what have you, there's kind of a lull in the news reporting. You don't really hear a whole lot. But then oftentimes, last 10 minutes, last 15 minutes right before kickoff, you might get a nugget of something. And that's when you strike, and that's when you take advantage. That's when you strike.
I like it.
When you get the nugget is when you strike. At least that's what the kids say. Moving on, Juju Smith-Schuster questionable against the Saints. Ray Fittipaldo on Twitter had that story. He did not participate today, although there was a walkthrough prior to practice. He did participate in that. Antonio Brown said that he expects Juju Smith-Schuster to be out there, but it doesn't sound like it's I think he has a better shot of playing than Todd Gurley, but it's definitely not significantly better.
I don't know, though. I mean, do both teams, you might know this better than I'm sure you do, actually. Do both teams need to win? They kind of both do for home field.
Well, Pittsburgh, I mean, they're in a
Pittsburgh just needs to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. They can't afford any losses here, and then New Orleans is playing for that number 1 seed. So.
And so the Rams.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gurley. Yeah, I don't know if the Rams can get the number 1 seed anymore. I mean, they have the division locked up, I would assume, but there's certainly bigger things in mind for Sean McVay and the Rams, I would imagine, and you got to believe that the opponent plays something into this as well, Dave. When you consider that the Rams are taking on Josh Rosen and the Cardinals, I think that's probably going to factor into the Gurley decision as well.
It is a road game, though, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I know that we as, bench, what are we, armchair quarterbacks or whatever, we think, oh, yeah, this is an easy game. I don't think that's how McVay thinks. I just think he's like, all right, we're going into this, into Arizona. They always play tough at home. We know that we're a better team than them, but we really need to actually play it up. I can see him activating, if Gurley says, oh, I'm good, I can see him activating him and putting him out in the passing game more often and just not running it to him.
That could be.
Not running up the middle as much if they actually activate him. Not trying to be too optimistic. I'm just saying that I could see him doing that. Just to lock up that W.
Both teams are on the road, so wouldn't you think we'll find out if these guys don't make the trip, then clearly they're out.
Yes.
Hashtag analysis. But we should. But I guess my point is we should know like tomorrow, wouldn't you think? Or
well, if they don't make the trip,
potentially tomorrow, and then you could,
I know that. I know Juju did the walkthrough, by the way, right?
Right.
He did the walkthrough first. That was something, I guess.
Yeah, that is something. And a groin injury too for a receiver. Just how effective is he going to be if he's fighting through that? That's the other thing to keep in mind.
Well, it just depends on how bad it really is.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And we clearly do not know. We don't have all the information yet. We will get more information. That is our promise to you. Michael Cohen on Twitter reporting, Jamal Williams was not listed on the Packers' final injury report for Week 16 against the New York Jets. He had a toe problem earlier in this week, but he did fully participate in practice today. Aaron Jones obviously already on IR. Capri Bibbs, Dave, the newest Packers running back. It's going to be him and Jamal Williams. They're the only 2 healthy running backs on the Packers roster right now. I bring this up because Williams looked pretty good against a really good defense last week. And you heard from Neil Hassett. He's playing Jamal Williams with $250,000 on the line. I think you could feel pretty good about flexing him out this week.
Yeah, Williams is a pretty talented back. The Packers don't have a ton of wins, but they're a pretty solid offense regardless. Still have Aaron Rodgers there, so they have to respect that. They have to respect the passing game. I think Williams is a really solid start. And the fact that he's not on the final injury report is like a godsend. He's like one of the few players that's actually not on the injury report that was showing up early. I would start Williams with confidence for sure.
I think about all the snaps he's going to get, Dave, too, because the big knock on Aaron Jones was he couldn't pass pro, and that's one of the best things Jamal Williams does. Like, he is going to get all he can handle. You think about the limited touches that he's received throughout the second half of the year after Aaron Jones really made his mark. I don't know, man. Jamal Williams he could get 25 touches this week. It's entirely possible. Maybe even 30. I don't know. It all depends how the game flow goes and what the Jets try to take away on defense. But that is certainly possible.
The Packers are a modest favorite, right?
This was one of the weirdest point spreads. I think the Packers opened up as 3.5-point favorites. Then they dropped to like being 2-point dogs when it wasn't known if Aaron Rodgers is going to play. And now I think they're back up to 3-point favorites again. In fact, I'm going to look it up right now, unless you have it.
I'm trying to get it. So, if that's the case, the game script, if they actually win on the road, which, by the way, Rodgers is, I think, 0-7 this year on the road.
Yep, he did not won a game on the road yet. It opened at 3.5. It is now Packers by 2.5.
2.5, which my buddy Leroy will tell you that 2.5s and 3.5s never cover. In fact, you should always bet the other way. So, just for the play, plus
you should always take the points?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I guess the argument is that if the favorite was good enough to be 3, it would be 3, which means it's not good enough and the other team is the play. You're trying to sucker the public into betting to laying the 2.5. Anyway, so I do think that if they're going to win the game, they're going to be running the ball up.
Right. Related note to the Packers, Aaron Jones. 2-part question for you, Dizzle. What round do you think he goes in FFPC drafts next year? And if you were drafting in the FFPC or a similar high-stakes event, what round would you feel comfortable taking him in?
What was his injury again, do you recall?
It was a MCL sprain.
Okay, so nothing too serious. He'll be fine.
No surgery.
I think he'll go in the 3rd. I probably would consider him around that spot.
Really? You would take? Okay. I guess it kind of depends on the new head coach, too.
Yeah.
in the system. That
Hopefully it's Norv Turner.
Yeah, exactly.
Not for the team's sake, but for the running back's sake.
Or Eric Bieniemy would be good for Aaron Jones.
Right.
I think that would make a lot of sense. Anybody with the last name Shanahan would obviously be beneficial there.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, we'll have all
Andy
offseason.
Reid have any assistants?
The Kansas City's going to shed up offensive assistants again.
Yeah.
Whoever
his quarterback coaches would be nice.
It's so funny how the NFL works, where it's just like, you could just be on the staff and get a good job coaching, and it seems like the fact that the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, they had Kareem Hunt, they had Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, all these talented players. Don't you think that has something to do with the success there, rather than just plucking every possible assistant coach imaginable?
Yeah.
I feel like you should be taking the coaches who don't have a lot to work with, who maybe aren't running the top offenses in the NFL, but they're squeezing the most production they can out of what they have. Those are the talented guys.
That's actually true.
One of the guys I wanted to see the Packers hire, it was two guys for me that really stood out, was Josh McDaniels and John DeFilippo. And DeFilippo, I think, is a total, the opposite of a victim, beneficiary of being where he was in Philadelphia last year, winning a Super Bowl. And then he goes to Minnesota with better offensive weapons and maybe outside of quarterback. And he doesn't even make it through a full season. I mean, it's just like there's no way he's getting that head coaching job. I can't imagine in Green Bay. Listen to the show with Leo and Balky for more on the Packers head coaching search on that.
Yeah, can you give us a tease of that? Is it? They're talking up a lot of big names, by the way, the Packers. Or people are.
Well, I mean, yeah, because Mark Murphy and Brian Gutekunst have largely been silent on who they're
talking about the coach from Alabama. Come on.
That was an internet thing. So I think here's what happened. I think somebody on Bleacher Report wrote an article, if I can sum it up in one sentence, like, wouldn't it be cool if Saban came up and coached the Packers? And then somebody took that and ran with it, and it was like a headline for another story. Report: Saban could possibly be Packers' next head coach.
Saban to coach Packers?
Yeah, exactly. He wouldn't, and that's not going to happen. It's
like every year he gets to have like the best recruiting class in the country.
Right.
He effectively gets to cheat.
Yeah.
Not saying he's cheating. I'm just saying he gets to cheat because he gets all the 5-star recruits he wants.
Right.
You don't want to play for me? Well, tough shit. I'll just find somebody else who's just as good as you.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't get that in the NFL. Why would you want to go to the parity of the NFL when you get to be like the guy, like the Kimberly High School, as we would call it in the local area, where you're dominating everything.
Yeah.
It's so much. It's so easy.
There's a guy, and I'm gonna. This doesn't have anything to do with fantasy, but I'm gonna tell it anyway. Justin Fields. You're probably not familiar with him, Dave. He was the number one top-ranked quarterback last year, and he decided that he was going to commit to Georgia. And this is after Georgia had a redshirt. I think he was a redshirt freshman, and Jake Fromm had a fantastic season for him. Led them all the way to the national championship game. They were SEC champions. I really wanted Justin Fields to go to Florida State, which is one of the teams he was considering. And
Which is your team that you want.
Right, and I was kind of miffed. I'm like, why would you want to go to Georgia and play behind this guy who's a year older than him? I mean, he's the man. He put up all these numbers.
Crushing it, right.
And they've worked him in on some packages this year, and he got some playing time.
Now he's going to transfer?
And now there's reports coming out that he probably will transfer.
What an idiot.
Now here's the interesting thing. Normally you have to sit out a year unless you can unless you can get a hardship waiver from the NCAA. Okay. Now he's already hired.
Get enough money under the table.
He's already hired an attorney, the same attorney who got Michigan's quarterback, Shea. I can't think of his name.
Shea O'Reilly?
No.
Shea McFeely.
No, come on. I'm going to look it up right now. But this is a guy who transferred from Mississippi to Michigan, and he got to play right away because Shea Patterson was his name.
Oh, that is my first name, though.
And yeah, Shea Patterson, transferring from the University of Mississippi up to Michigan. He got the hardship waiver, and because he wasn't. I think that the report or what it said in there was he was not being told the entire truth about the scope of the mess that Mississippi was in with a bunch of NCAA violations.
Sure.
So he got that. So now Justin Fields hires this same lawyer who got Patterson without consider the year.
Can you say, I'm just stupid?
Here's the slant. Apparently, there is a university that gets deeper. A University of Georgia baseball team member was shouting racist things at him during a game. Now, this player has since been kicked off the Georgia baseball team, but Fields is expected to potentially use that.
What's his name again?
Quarterback, Justin Fields.
Is he white or black?
He's black.
It'd be funny if he was white.
Yeah, it would be funny.
What's up, Cracker?
He's expected that it's a possibility that he could use this guy yelling this racist stuff at him to get a hardship waiver to transfer to a different school.
Sure, he's persecuted.
Yeah, to transfer to a different school without having to sit out a year.
That's good.
All because this guy was yelling.
Yeah.
You know.
And the funny thing is, that guy was, probably paid $50,000 by the lawyer under the table.
Yeah, could be.
Yell out racist stuff.
Or he was a buddy of Justin Fields.
Could be.
And he's like, hey, listen, I need you to do me a solid. It's going to cost you your scholarship, but it'll be worth it for me.
I hope it works out for Justin Fields.
And it sounds like he's, because obviously Florida State's back in the picture because they couldn't sign a guy and they lost a guy on National Signing Day to North Carolina. They have 2 quarterbacks right now, one of which might be turning pro. And then they'd only have one scholarship quarterback. But it sounds like he's going to go to Ohio State. Which, by the way, Urban Meyer, did you see he's going to be teaching a class on character and leadership at Ohio State now?
That's hilarious. That's like when James Comey was going to teach some sort of class on ethics, I think, at some school.
It's like
disgraced FBI director. I believe, no matter politics are, you got to admit that's the case.
It's like if I was to teach a course on how to not be charming and ugly.
Very funny.
Yeah, I mean that's
of course on broadcasting.
Well, come on, that's not true. Rashad Penny is questionable for Week 16 against Kansas City, according to John Boyle on Twitter. Pete Carroll said earlier this week that his status was uncertain, but then the Seahawks went out and got Bo Scarborough from Alabama Crimson Tide off of Jacksonville's practice squad as Penny insurance.
Oh, hey, the Seahawks got another running back?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Chris Carson obviously looks really, really good if Penny does miss the 3 games that he has missed this year. Chris Carson has combined for 75 touches in those games. So that looks really good. Kansas City allowing a ton of points to opposing running backs. You got to get Chris Carson in your lineup, I guess, is what this comes down to. He looks like poised for a big game against Kansas City.
Yeah, I totally agree, actually. Totally agree. Carson is a must-start this week. The only reason he's not...
You have him in a couple of spots in Kentucky, I thought.
I do, but I mean, the only reason you wouldn't start him is if you want to go against the grain because other people have him. But a lot of teams up there have Carson. He had a big week last week, too.
I wonder how that I know we're in championship week. I wonder how that backfield looks in 2019 as far as where Penny and Carson get drafted. I wonder who the play is in that backfield.
Carson.
Who do you think gets drafted first, Carson?
To be honest with you, I said Carson just instinctively. I'm not sure. That's a really tough one, to be honest, because of the draft position. But Carson's playing really, really well. I mean, he's a good back. But truthfully, Penny's a good back as well.
What about this?
Here we go.
Let me throw this scenario at you. Do you know who David Montgomery is?
Ty Montgomery's brother?
No. He's running back for Iowa State. There's a chance that he might be the only first-round running back this year. It's not a great class for running back.
Yeah, I've heard that.
What would happen, Dave, if Seattle traded up in the first round to select David Montgomery? Can you imagine? Nobody would know what to do with those 2 guys. Oh, man, that would be so entertaining. And honestly,
like, we really like him.
I got to tell you, no, he'd be like this. Yeah, we really like him. There is a non-zero chance of that happening, too, by the way. I could totally... I
know, they're kooky over there.
They are kooky. They do things different in Seattle, for sure. SNY's Ralph Vacchiano reports that Le'Veon Bell wants to sign with the Colts this offseason. A source told Vacchiano that he has his eyes on the Colts, no doubt about that. He sees Andrew Luck in that offense and all that cap room. He wants to go someplace he can win right away. The Jets obviously also are a team that has been mentioned several times in the pursuit of Le'Veon Bell. Marlon Mack, Nyheim Hines, these are guys that they drafted in the 2017 and 2018 drafts respectively. I feel like there are much better ways for the Colts to spend their money. However, Dave, if Le'Veon Bell does go to the Colts next year, top 5 selection in the draft, right? In fantasy drafts.
Yeah, we have to. He's in the mix. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sitting a year off It's something. It's not nothing. I mean, I know it wasn't for anything nefarious or anything like that, but Bell's a little bit of a whack job, and he's like not a second tier. He's like a third tier whack job. He's got.
Well, this is interesting.
He's got to have that pot. He got caught with the pot with his buddy.
Let's dive into this a little bit. So he's a third tier whack job. Can you give me an example of a second tier whack job? So somebody who's not.
I don't want to get too deep.
So somebody who is not, batshit crazy, but they're obviously crazier than Le'Veon Bell. Who would you put in that category?
I might need a minute to think about it.
I'm just like
we know the first tier guy.
Okay, well, who's the first tier?
Gordon's the first tier.
Well,
in truth, I actually think, whatever people are going to blast me, I think Kareem Hunt is like a second tier whack job. I think he made one big mistake and.
Well, or three.
Whatever. Yeah, maybe there's three.
Yeah.
Maybe he is first.
I think he's first tier.
All right. So Hunt. I'm just trying to think of someone who's like had an infraction. I would put like I don't know. I don't really have a good second tier guy right now.
Are we talking strictly fantasy or NFL? Because like Reuben Foster, I think is first tier, but for fantasy it's nothing.
Yeah. I don't. There's players I don't really know that well.
Our third. Who do we say was the third tier whack job? Le'Veon Bell. Okay.
Yeah.
I think like the third tier. So like Clinton Portis comes to mind. Now, he never was really suspended or anything.
Des Bryant to me is the
second tier whack job, Des Bryant. I could see that. All right, so now I'm kind of, I think I could.
Chad Johnson back then was kind of like a second tier.
See, now he to me would be like third or fourth because these guys they didn't do anything that was detrimental for fantasy or to their team. Yeah, I mean, like they just like Clinton Portis with all those characters he'd come up with in the press conferences. I mean, that, didn't hurt anybody, but you're like, okay, well, this guy's,
I could argue that Cam Newton's kind of a third-tier whack job.
Because of his...
he has the characters, but, he's, with his dress and just how he acts, but he's not too crazy or anything like that.
Aunt Jemima pipes in. Ricky Williams, what tier would he be? Is he second tier? Because he retired early to smoke weed.
Yeah, I actually think he is second tier because he went out on his own terms. You know what I mean? And by the way, I'd like to, again, congratulate, I've said this many times.
Yeah.
I'd like to congratulate Lenny Papano and Draft
Sharks
for naming Ricky Williams their Draft Sharks Bust of the Year, and 36 hours later, Ricky Williams retired, and they took that as a successful nomination of the
draft.
It was like early August, so if you drafted August 12th, 2006 or whatever the hell it was, hey, good job, you didn't draft Ricky Williams because you had the bust.
Well,
I want my $29 back from that year.
Hey, listen.
I want my refund.
In those 36 hours, did you...
No, I didn't have any draft.
Exactly. So they saved you. You didn't draft any Ricky Williams. 2012 is when he
retired.
When he retired, apparently.
All right.
Which I thought it was earlier than that because I was bouncing at a bar when I saw the report come on.
Bulky no longer takes steroids.
Yeah, no, I never.
Used to bench like 420.
Yeah, that's definitely not the case. I feel like I was bouncing that night, and they flashed it up on the screen, and I didn't think it was real, and all of a sudden my phone started blowing up. Yeah, so it was before that. So before 2000, it was 2004.
When you got drafted?
No. May 14th, he tested positive for marijuana. Oh, no, he tested positive for marijuana in December of 2003, and he was facing a year suspension of the 2004 season. And... so he was not going to be eligible to play. Then he returned to the Dolphins in 2005. And then here's the line, Dave. February 20th, 2006, the NFL announced Williams had violated the NFL drug policy for the fourth time. And then he was suspended for the entire 2006 season. So there you go. So it was 2006.
All right.
Good call on that.
Was that right? That was
2006, yeah, 2006 season. He was their first round bust.
That's funny.
All right, let's get into fantasy feedback here. Boy, we are really off the rails tonight. I hope everybody enjoys this
that makes it good.
Championship Week podcast. We're helping literally nobody. Let's help Ryan in Toledo then.
All right, good.
Hey guys, maybe this goes without saying, but if Hilton is active, do I play him? It seems like he's left games mid-game with injuries before, and he's already banged up. I don't want to screw this up. Good luck in your matchups, except for Balky, who I know has never had a meaningful Week 16 game. That is Ryan in Toledo. Thank you for the shade, Ryan. Appreciate that. Dave is going to answer this question because clearly you don't want my opinion.
Oh yeah, I think you got given what's going on, you got to throw T.Y. Hilton out there. If he's playing and he's starting, you got to play him.
T.Y. Hilton is at home against the New York Giants this week. That is what the kids call a plum matchup, and risk of re-injury or not, it pales in comparison to the ceiling that you get from Hilton. So I don't think I own Hilton anywhere. If I did, it'd be real tough to find two receivers I like better than him on that same roster. I think he's going to have a big week 16.
Totally agree. By the way, I traded T.Y. Hilton to a sports betting man for Cooper Kupp before the season started. Still pretty happy about that trade, even though I lost Kupp's injury. And I still think Hilton did well.
Well, the great thing about Cooper Kupp, Dave, is he's sneaky fast. So even when he comes back from this, he'll still have – he's got a high football IQ.
4-7 wheels.
Yeah, but he's sneaky fast.
He is sneaky fast.
He's a really polished route runner.
What are you trying to get at?
That he's white.
I don't know if the word sneaky is the word you use for the white receivers.
No, that is what you use, sneaky fast.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he doesn't look it, but he's sneaky fast. Moving on, Jim, and I'm going to botch this up. Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. Dear Dave and Balky, how do you feel about Matt Breida gutting out another game this week in a tough matchup against the Bears at home? Does he make your flex-worthy list? Thank you for the email, Jim, and I'll just say Pennsylvania. So Matt Breida, this is a guy that the 49ers have failed to protect him from himself. I think they leave this up to him.
That's pretty funny, actually.
I mean, it's totally serious. I went off on the Packers for this week on the show with Leo and Balky at 95.3, 99.1 the score, because they are failing to protect Aaron Rodgers from himself. Somebody needed to do it. Nobody's doing it. Same thing's happening in San Francisco, and the same thing's been happening for the 49ers with Matt Breida the entire second half of the season. This guy needs to take a few games off, get that ankle right. What he should be doing right now is just going on IR and getting the ankle right in preparation for the 2019 season. I don't like him this week as a flex, Dave.
I'd probably try and find somebody else. I mean, they're at home against the Bears, getting 4 points in a low-scoring game, totals 43, which means they are projected to score 19.5, I think, if my math is right. And so that's not that good. I mean, the Bears' rush defense is solid. And, Breida's not all that. I mean, he's really not all that great.
What level of whack job would Aaron Rodgers be? 5th level?
4th.
4th, okay. Fair enough.
He's not too wacky.
John in Waukegan, Illinois. I've been playing Kyle Rudolph all season, but he has not done much for me. Do I roll the dice with Chris Herndon instead with everything on the line? Thanks, HSFFers. That is John in Waukegan, Illinois. Dave, I'm going to tell you the most disappointing part about my Week 16 in the leagues I'm still alive in. I have a shocking amount of teams that have Kyle Rudolph as the starting tight end, and does not make me feel good at all. Now, am I prepared to start Chris Herndon over Kyle Rudolph this week? I think it's a decision I have to make on one of my rosters, and Dave, I think I'm going to play Herndon over Kyle Rudolph this week. Herndon at home against the Packers. Kyle Rudolph taking on the Lions.
Yeah, Herndon is actually he's a really dynamic tight end for as a rookie. He's putting up really good points actually.
Didn't we bring this up on this show last week where he was ballyhooed in the pre-draft process?
Yeah, he was one of those RotoViz guys in their pre-draft tight end gonna be awesome article, whatever the hell model they call it.
Right.
Yeah, he was one of them. I think he's gonna be a really good tight end in the long run. And they're using him a lot. The receivers are terrible. And Newman was out as always.
Right.
So why not? Yeah, give it a shot. And Darnold's playing pretty well too.
He has 13 catches over his last 4 games for a total of about 150 yards. No touchdowns over that span. I mean, I don't.
You can't get too excited.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying Herndon's a slam dunk over Kyle Rudolph, but especially if you want to create some variance, Herndon could be an interesting guy this week. I think I would play him over Rudolph.
Well, weeks 12 to 15, Herndon has outscored Rudolph by a total of 0.4 fantasy points. So there you have it.
So it's like a coin flip, basically. And
coin flip of garbage.
Are you saying Herndon then over Rudolph?
Yeah, I mean, just because Rudolph is a better player, I guess. So if you start Rudolph, I guess he got you there, sort of.
Well,
but I mean, he is like the fourth.
You got there in spite of Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook, you have Thielen, you have Diggs, and it's like they throw Rudolph only on accident.
No, they got that other tight end there that they've been throwing to too. That rookie, his name escapes me. He's got the long blonde hair. I can't think of what his name is.
How's his ass? Is it pretty nice?
It's all right. I mean, he could probably be in the weight room a little bit more, but he's a young guy. He'll find his way.
Charming young man.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
Looks a little bit like Thor from those superhero movies.
He's very well read. Political science major.
That's great.
Steve in Sugar Land, Texas. I know you're supposed to start with who got you to the title game, but I don't feel good about Goff this week. Would y'all still roll with him over Mayfield? That is Steve in Sugar Land, Texas.
Negative.
I would play Mayfield over Jared Goff this week.
I would play Mayfield.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought we were going. The other way. Yeah, no. You should have said positive.
Whatever.
So we both say Mayfield over Goff this week. You know, it's weird, and I don't know if I have a good reason why I feel this way, but they're taking on the Cardinals. They're probably not going to have Todd Gurley. You would think that means more for Goff, more action for Goff. I don't necessarily know if it does. And Baker Mayfield against a horrible, horrible defense, I really like that matchup better than Jared Goff's.
Plus I just like that he's at home. It's going to be nice, comfortable. The crowd will be quiet while he's throwing passes, slinging it all over the place. You know, Arizona fans will be loud, even though they're big dogs in that game. I don't know. I don't know. Goff has just been struggling too much for me.
Right. Yeah. Let's pop into the chat room real quick. Aunt Jemima wants to know, he's got a tight end question this week, Dave. Would you be playing Evan Engram or would you be playing Rob Gronkowski this week? Evan Engram at the Indianapolis Colts. Rob Gronkowski taking on the Bills at home.
I'd play Gronk. I mean, you lost Gordon, which isn't a big deal. I mean, it wasn't that many targets. Gronk actually, everybody is crapping all over Gronk. Like, he looks so bad. I think Evan Sola had a funny joke. He was talking about him looking like the reincarnation of Frankenstein's monster or something like that. But the truth of the matter is, the reason Gronk had a kind of a poor game last week is they were hitting him at the line, and then they were doubling him downfield,
right.
Which means he's still actually awesome if they're double teaming this guy who's supposedly washed up. I think Gronk gets right, even against Buffalo. Buffalo's really good against wide receivers. I think he'll have an actually pretty solid game. I think Brady will hit him a few number of times.
I'm with you on Gronk. I think it's very close between the two. What makes this decision so compelling is these two tight ends are playing on teams that have lost their number one receiver either this week or previous. No Beckham in New York,
right.
No Gordon in New England, so we don't exactly know how that's going to play out. I am going to play Gronk, going back to the whole Eric Balkman self-deprecating theory of who to start and who to bench. Who would you feel worse about if you benched? I'd feel worse if Gronk went off on my bench than Engram went off on my bench, so I am playing Gronk.
Plus, you have two Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Two Hall of Fame quarterbacks? Oh, Eli. I get it. That's very funny.
In 10 years, we're going to look back, and he'll be in there, and I'll be like, what the hell happened?
Yeah. It's just, Eli Manning will be the guy when, this doesn't happen because if you're going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but Eli Manning would be the guy who would get up to give his Hall of Fame speech, and he'd be like the guy patting his suit jacket, like, I didn't prepare anything. I thought this was a joke the whole time, but apparently I do have to give a speech. Dear Steve and Anquan, tough call for me this week at my third wideout. Lockett or Fitz? Who you got? Thanks, guys. Your show has really helped me in 4 out of the last 6 years. That is Glenn in Tampa.
That's funny.
I'm glad we were on point in 4 out of 6 years for Glenn in Tampa. So you look at this, Dave. It's Tyler Lockett. It's Larry Fitzgerald. Tyler Lockett is the Sunday night game hosting the Kansas City Chiefs, and then the Cardinals and Larry Fitzgerald are hosting the Los Angeles Rams. If you have to pick one, who are you playing between these two?
I'm not a big Lockett fan, but I mean, I think I would start Lockett over Fitz in this case. I think Fitz, all that Fitz really has going for him is stat padding, and that is something that is a thing.
Right.
And I think Fitz actually might be all right. But the Seahawks game could turn into a legitimate shootout, actually. And I think that in Russell Wilson, I know they always want to run. They run the ball more than half the time.
Right.
But if it turns into a shootout, they're going to have to throw it. Lockett's the guy that they're going to have to throw it to. Baldwin's just not as good anymore.
Don't look. What's the total on that Chiefs-Seahawks game?
51.5.
54.5.
See, that's even higher than I thought.
And I'm going to roll with Lockett as well. Not just because I need him to do well this week in a couple leagues, Kentucky main event. But I will say that I think that Kansas City secondary can be exposed. It has been exposed. and I think Lockett has a big week this week. Can't say the same about Larry Fitzgerald right now. Final question, Dave, for the year, really, as we move on to the playoff challenge.
I can't wait for our new music to come up.
Yeah, Rob's got to get on that. Caleb in Salisbury,
Rob,
North Carolina.
What are you smiling about, Rob?
Hi,
You should not be smiling. You should get fired.
Yeah, he's not going to get fired. Hi, Balky and Dave. I benched Derrick Henry last week for Leonard Fournette because I knew he couldn't do it again.
That was a huge error.
But he did. So do I play Henry this week for my fantasy championship over my first-round pick? I can't believe I'm even contemplating this.
Yeah.
Dave, you bench Leonard Fournette in favor of Derrick Henry.
I mean, no. I mean, yes, you bench Fournette for
Right.
Henry.
That's what I'd be doing.
Absolutely.
Too.
I mean, Henry, by the way, he's not the only one. A lot of the so-called expert ranking sites botched Henry again last week. And that was weak. I don't know if we talked about it, but it was like, Henry was a legitimate, after they actually used him properly and they're just running, just pounded with Henry, he's an awesome back.
Right.
They did it last week. Now the offensive coordinator finally figured out, hey, maybe you have to give this guy 20 rushes a game instead of giving it to Deion Stupid Lewis, saying he might do pretty well. And amazingly, he does.
No, that was his middle name.
I mean, if this is like an obvious thing that he should have another good game. I think Henry's going to be one of those uber risers next year. Because you know how everyone always looks at weeks 9 through 16, and they look at these late weeks and they'll be like, oh, Derrick Henry, wow, he's going to be fantastic. And I think he's going to have a good year next year, too.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I'm actually kind of mad that I didn't acquire him for cheap, because he could have been gotten for very cheap in the first 10 weeks of the season, and now his price is coming up.
Two other running backs we talked about on the show tonight. Would you be drafting both Aaron Jones and Phillip Lindsay ahead of Derrick Henry if you were drafting right now for next year?
Yeah, that's a really tough question.
So he's a third-round pick is what you're saying, Henry.
He's in the neighborhood. I would draft Lindsay ahead of him, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's, Freeman's pretty solid back, but Lindsay's been so outstanding. I mean, so good. I would draft Lindsay over Aaron Jones. I might draft Henry over Aaron Jones right this second.
If you're drafting now, I mean, there's going to be free agency. There's going to be the draft. Seattle.
There's going to be coach speak.
Seattle's going to try to get all the running backs in the draft this year.
Exactly. They're going to cut some guys, pick up someone else. They'll sign Kareem Hunt, and they'll draft a running back in the first round. Seahawks will. You know what Seattle's going to do. Go sign Bell?
No. No. You know who? Maybe, but you know who they're going to get? Marshawn Lynch. They're going to bring Marshawn Lynch back to Seattle.
We want to apologize for that, not running a play in the Super Bowl.
And you'd be like, yeah, I'm cool. Just give me some Skittles.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not practicing. I'm just going to play in games. That's going to do it for our show this week, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Neil Hassett, the FFPC, Dave Gerzak, Rob, Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you. We will be back next week. And when I say we, I mean you and me. Dave will not be here. Is that correct, Dave?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be somewhere.
Yeah, you will not be here. I'm going to have a special guest co-host and probably...
I'll miss the show.
Yeah, so... it's probably going to be somebody who won some big money this upcoming weekend. So
no national champs, though.
No, and we in the past we have had the Terminator champ come on and co-host this podcast. Super Bracket champ has come on. So I think there's a safe bet that it could be one of those guys or gals. We'll see.
I'll be back though in time for when the playoff challenge actually starts.
The plan is to have the main event champs on, I think, the first show of the new year.
That's exciting.
I think that's what we're going to do. So
the new music and the new. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Well, okay. That's the plan, Dave. The thing is,
all you gotta do is upload it.
YouTube has been blocking so much of our music lately.
Something tells me the song we want for the outro, that Wax song,
I think
won't get blocked.
We're probably okay in that. So we will be back next week.
I could probably Twitter tweet to that Wax guy and ask him if he uses it. He'd probably be like, "Oh, cool, man, whatever."
I don't think that would fly for YouTube. That is next week. I want to remind everybody to check out the High Stakes Lowdown with, of course, Jeremy Roach on rotoviz.com/podcast. Yeah, and Roach killed it this week. Good luck to him and Danny Mueller and
they're
all of
there. Kentucky.
Yeah, they are. Good luck in the championship week this week. It all comes down to this. All the blood, sweat, and tears, all the drafts, all the waiver wires, all the lineup submissions. Good luck. I hope the ball bounces your way. Go register for the World Famous Playoff Challenge, myffpc.com. Happy holidays to everybody out there. Have a great one, and get started now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I'm going to ask you with 3 more whack job level guys, okay?
Yeah, all right.
None of them are players. Jerry Jones. Third level?
Second. He's second.
All right. Mark Davis.
Where is he with?
The Raiders owner.
Second.
And last one, John Gruden.
First.
Oh, it's totally worth it. I knew you were going to say that. It was so hilarious. Good stuff.
What a whack job. He's the worst.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody. We'll be back next week, and good luck in Week 16.
I wish I had a contract, though.